Now, when you come back to corporates, why should corporates get involved in CSI? I'm sure there are a number of people from companies who are represented in the room, and Nick presented here companies that have supported Trialogue in this CSI Matter conference. Clearly, I think we've got to recognize that the whole world is facing a challenge. Capitalism is facing a challenge. When you go through, for instance, some of the forums, such as the World Economic Forum, the debates and the discussions are around the problem that capitalism has created in the world, the gaps that have increased in terms of those people who have nots, the problems that we're facing in many countries, such as Europe or the US, where countries have lived beyond their means and companies have benefited. But it's quite clear that the basis on which companies operated in those countries is not sustainable. That's why you see the problems that we face in the Eurozone, problems that we see in the US, because structurally, capitalism has not delivered the goods of addressing some of the fundamental issues that the world faces. So it raises fundamental question, what kind of system do we need to have going forward? What is the role of companies in society? And I think I'm always quite amazed when I participate in some of these forums, and there are companies from Europe or the United States or even Asia, to recognize just how far advanced we are as a country, even though we have our own problems. But generally, corporate South Africa is far advanced compared to a lot of the companies that operate in the developed world. When you talk about the role of company in terms of not just shareholder participation and companies existing for the benefit of shareholders, but rather existing for the benefit of broader stakeholders, we understand these issues a lot better than a lot of the developed countries. A lot of it has to do with changes that were implemented in this country post-94, where whether it was the BEE codes or it was generally the understanding that business has some role to play in society, has created an environment where corporate South Africa is a lot more involved than a lot of the other countries. And if we look at this, I think we must acknowledge that as South Africa, we're not where we should be because, and I'll touch on some of the role players or the stakeholders that we as companies need to take care of. Clearly, we have customers and we need to sell products to our customers that meet their needs. But in selling customers, no longer can companies simply sell products that may be harmful to society at the end of the day. So we need to be responsible in the context of creating products and services that we make available to our customers. When it comes to employees, we've got to create an environment where our employees are engaged. We've got to create a safe environment for our employees. And as far as our shareholders are concerned, clearly it must be in the interest of those shareholders as well to make sure that the practices that companies are involved in are sustainable in the long term. But we have a bigger responsibility to play as far as broader society is concerned. No longer can companies simply get involved in activities that degrade the environment, that are harmful to society as a whole because they were exploiting profits. I mean, you just need to drive around Johannesburg, for instance, to see what happened over the last decade or so with all the mine dumps that we have. And clearly there's a lot that companies, for instance, in the mining and resources sector are doing today, but it's quite difficult for us as a country to repair some of the damage that was done previously, which means we have to be sensitive to the impact that we as companies are making in society as a whole.